What's going on there, fellow YouTubers? This is Chris from the Msss Anomalies channel. Guys, don't really have any anomalies to show you today. These are my thoughts. And I'm going to throw a huge hypothetical at you guys. Let me just stop by saying, as far as the video I did about India, how they showed Mars, one of the planets they showed was Mars, and of course it was all orange. And after I did this, and this is what come out. Now, I was kind of beating up India, but then I had a second thought. I'm saying to myself, wait a minute. What would happen if they were trying to inadvertently kind of leak this stuff out? Perhaps it was just too easy, guys. I mean, I did a simple automatic contrast and pop, and all I did was put a little gray to it and darken the picture up, and this is what come out. Why these colors? Why do these colors come out like that? Why didn't they come out yellow, blue, and orange? Why didn't they come out pink, yellow, and green? I mean, why these particular colors that look just like Earth? So maybe they're working and they're just kind of saying, hey, we'll just go ahead and give up the information, but, you know, whatever. Now, if that's true, if there's somebody on the inside working with it and trying to get the information out, but doing it kind of in a sneaky way, kudos to them. If they're not, well, then shame on them for trying to be sneaky. But if this is absolutely true, if this picture is true, again, hypothetical, huge hypothetical. These are just my thoughts. I was thinking about this. I'm saying, okay, we can go back to all the Mars missions, between the flybys, the Mariners, the Vikings, so on and so forth. And I can show you a list here of everything that happened. You can see where the Soviet Union did a flyby in 1960. They all attempted, and look, space failures, launch failures, so on and so forth. The first one was the Mariner 4 in 1964. Now, question, how do we know that there wasn't some other flybys prior to this? Think about it. I mean, they just go, hey, let's just take a couple attempts. It fails, who cares? It just flies out in space and that's the end of it. Or slams into Mars and who cares? Okay. So, again, they may be missions that we don't even know about. But let's say, for hypothetical, it doesn't matter. 1964, they send this over there and they see a thriving planet. You know, like they send it by there and they take a couple snapshots, see these huge cities. I mean, guys, we've been pulling cities out of these areas where they've been trying to cover them up. How do we know that when they took these flybys, here's a good example. Let's say you see buildings. Okay, but then you see roadways if some kind of vehicle is driving around. Okay, you do the flyby, you take pictures. And they go, wow, look, there's actually some kind of weird vehicles and there's some kind of buildings. But then they go, okay, send another flyby. We're going to try to go over that same area if we can. They do. But now these vehicles are in different position. What's that tell you? That means there's a thriving planet there. There's actually beings alive. Okay, now, let's think about this a minute. The powers to be said, you know what? We'd love to be able to get onto another planet. This would be great. Well, what would they do? Well, how do we know? And again, this is a huge, just a hypothetical. How do we know that they didn't say, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we send X amount of missiles to Mars? I don't care if it's 10, 20, and you just send them at certain times where, you know, you don't just send them all at once because, you know, other countries would notice this. But you just send one, then send another, and you send them late at night or whatever, so it's like kind of undercover. And you could just say, hey, we're just doing tests to get out in the atmosphere, because keep in mind, it is back in 1960s. So, you know, again, how do we know it didn't happen in the 50s? So now they send these things, but instead of saying, hey, let's put them nuclear warheads and just totally demolish the planet, why don't we do this? Why don't we send like a cocktail of germs and viruses? It would kill everything on that planet except for maybe trees, so on and so forth. But anything else that's there would be completely annihilated as far as anything, you know, that's biological. So now you go, okay, yeah, if they did that, and this is where, you know, like, let's say this is, again, the missile hits, like, in the middle of a populated area. Well, maybe that's why we're seeing these destructed areas, and then some places we see fully intact, huge cities. But if they did that, and again, they killed off every inhabitant on the planet, whether it be animal or inhabitant, like humanoid, humans, whatever, how convenient that would be now that we could go there and just not have to build a thing. Just occupy what they've got. Take over and run with it from there. How convenient would that be? So, you know, it's just a thought I had in my head because I'm looking at all of these other videos as well. What I've done and what other people, like the other team members have done and what they've found. it's like you see destruction and then you see things that are whole. Meaning, so you go, okay, so what happened in certain parts of it and then the rest of the parts are okay? If there was a great catastrophe, wouldn't these things be in total rubble? The whole planet, meaning, you know. So, I don't know. Maybe it was just one side of the planet that was totally demolished, because I believe that both the rovers, well, I should say 3 of the rovers, because, well, of course, we got the Spirit, which is a dead stick, and they, quote-unquote, said there's nothing going on with that one. Of course, we don't know if that's totally real, but you've still got Opportunity, which is still going strong 10 years later, and you've got Curiosity rover. Now, they're on 2 different sides of the planet, at least the Spirit and the orbiter. Opportunity, they were in 2 different ends of the planet, supposedly, or at least a good distance apart. So, okay. So then maybe that's the reason why we're seeing, you know, devastation in some parts of the planet, and then some we're seeing completely intact. So it makes you wonder, what kind of catastrophe was it? I don't know. You know, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, guys. Just a simple video just to get your thoughts, because I was just throwing this around in my head, and I'm saying, man, I don't... You know, how convenient, again, how convenient would that be if we would, because think about it, anything that's germs or anything, and of course I'm no biologist or anything like that, but you would think after 40, 50, 60 years, these viruses would die off because there's nothing to feed on. They would completely die off, and even if they went, you know, people could take shots and everything else to make sure they, you know, they could send up Ebola, they could send up, you know, chicken pox, they could send up all kinds of crap, just to, like I said, a cocktail of all germs and viruses, and just send them over there and just kill everything on that planet. And like I said, how easy would that be for the taking? Maybe they realized back then, hey, they don't look like they have much of a, some kind of, they don't have any satellites flying around. So maybe they don't have much of a weaponry of their own or any kind of self-defense. Who knows? It's easy pickings. And they could just simply go there and occupy everything there. Again, guys, give me your thoughts. I was just kind of kicking this idea around, just, you know, just throwing some thoughts around in my head. And I was also talking to Space Cadet about this, Peter. We were going back and forth on Skype, and I was telling him, he said, you know what, that's a good possibility. I mean, anything's possible. And, you know, like I said, there's so many things. Even look at the team, the Mars team members, everything they pulled out of their videos and out of these photos, and just look. I mean, some things look well intact, and I believe a lot of the stuff is still intact. But they, you know, they camouflage what might be sitting on the ground, and they make it look like a rock. And then, of course, there is devastation in some of these areas. So I don't know. I mean, it's just weird. Just give me your thoughts on it. Let me know what you guys think. I mean, I'm sure some of you guys have sat there and went, you know, I wonder, and thought about it. And you can see here where you've got all the successful and what NASA's done in the Mariners and the all the Mariners from 4 up. Because it was the Mariner 3 and 4, and I think the 3... one of them went stupid and just went out and, like I said, yeah, payload yeah, that's right. Fairing failed to separate. So that's what it was. It just kind of just went right by Mars, I believe, and that was the end of that. So then you go 4, 6, you know, so on and so forth, all the way up to the Mariners, and then you go into the Vikings in the 70s, right here, orbiters and landers. I mean, how do we know it wasn't prior to that? So, I mean, again, I was just kicking this around and just doing some thinking here. I'd like to get your thoughts, because I know you guys are, like I said, I know you guys are probably sitting there doing the same thing, just wondering, and, you know, why there's devastation in some parts? Why does it look like it's intact in another? Because it's clear that these space agencies are going out of their way to cover this stuff. So what gives? And again, kudos to India if they're kind of like saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and dress it up like NASA does, but we're going to make it easy for you guys to find the real truth. If that's true, a big thank you to them. If not, well, then shame on you, and yeah, that's it. Your people should be angry, just like we are here in the United States. And like I said, I wasn't really picking on India per se. I mean, I did say the GDP, they were one of the poorest. I don't mean literally one of the poorest, guys, and I was wrong as far as numbers-wise, and my apologies for that. In fact, they did come up in the GDP, like last year, like 60%. My God, they were second to China, which was 79%, I believe it was. So kudos to them as far as growth-wise and so on and so forth. And if these guys are doing this inadvertently, kind of like, we'll just slide this under the door, so to speak, and let people really find this and make it easier for them to find it, again, a great big thank you. And I know there's somebody, I'm sure, in NASA doing the same thing, trying to make it difficult but somewhat easy. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like, we're going to make it difficult, but we're going to make sure you can hide it. My boss wants to see these pictures, so I got to make sure it looks good, but I'm going to make it so you guys can somehow find some clues. So, you know, anybody who's doing that, if they are doing it at all, great big thank you, because people need to know. With that, guys, I'm going to let you go. Like I said, I just want to throw my thoughts in and see what you guys thought. And I want to get your thoughts big time on this because I'd love to hear how everybody else is thinking about it. Anyway, got another video coming up for you guys. It's pretty cool. One's short there for the newer subscribers. So stay tuned for that. And, you know, we'll see you next pick.